Hi, welcome back to another short tutorial, and this time we're going to talk about the physical structure of a computer system and more specifically, physical components of a computer system. And that means it's the hardware. So when you say hardware, you can actually touch it. It's a tangible part of the computer system, and this is what we're going to discuss today. So there are a part of this is the input devices. We have the input devices, and then we're going to discuss later on the output devices, processing, and storage. Under the input devices, these are devices that enables the user to put data into a computer system, and that is the input, and then it's going to be processed, and then it's going to come out in an output. So what are the basic input examples of input devices? As you can see on the screen here, okay, so we have here, as you can see here on the example that we have on the screen is this is a scanner, okay, this is a mouse and a remote control and even a tablet, okay. So scanner, it processes images that is placed into the flatbed or the scanner flatbed, and then it's going to be processed. It's going to be inputted in the system to be processed and then outputted on the screen of your monitor or outputted as a um, printed material in multifunction devices. So that means it's like hybrid devices. Why? Because it incorporates input, process, and also output. And same goes for this type of device, okay, which incorporates already input, process, and output, and that is the tablet. Okay. So what are the type of data that we usually get from input devices? We get sounds. We get so for sounds we need a microphone for that, an example, and then images, text, sensors, numbers, and symbols. So sensors. What what if you're gonna ask what are these sensors? Sensors come into so many forms. Sometimes we don't see it, like for examples in cars. Okay, so sensors in uh, if you're familiar with drones, those high-end drones where they have capability of dodging um, obstructions. That means it doesn't bump into something because it has a sensor, collision detect sensor, so it won't bump into something even if you try to control it to go to that direction, and then there's something on its way. It's not going to go through that and bump into that because it has a collision detect sensor, so it will avoid it and then go to it could stop. It will, or it could dodge it and go to another way. Another is, okay, so those are examples of sensors. Some they detect numbers and symbols. Okay, so these are examples of information that gets inputted into the input devices. So other examples for that, detailed examples for that are mouse. As you all know, that a mouse is a moving mouse, and clicking the buttons controls what happens on the screen and which options are selected. Just like what I'm trying to do now in this presentation, where I try to drag and drop, okay, and move objects. So this is my command to the computer, and that is inputting. Next is microphone, used to input sound as I'm doing right now, and that is recording this video. So it captures most especially not only what's happening on the screen, but also my voice. Okay. Another is keyboard. When you input letters, symbols, okay, controls, and then that's how we usually um, get or provide a command to the system or to the computer system. Okay. And let's proceed to the next one. We have now is the process and processing devices. Okay, these are devices which process input data, as I mentioned before, and that is the CPU or the central processing unit. Okay, this is the heart of the computer. It is a single chip called microprocessor. Let me just zoom into it. Let's zoom. Okay, so this is how it looks like. And this is just a tiny device, but this acts as the heart and the brain of your computer system. Without it, your computer system won't work. It is a single chip called microprocessor. It is also is responsible to manipulate data, to do something to it. For example, fetch instructions, sort data, perform calculations, and execute commands. We're gonna discuss this later. This is the memory because this is how microprocessor works. Data is loaded into the memory and is processed by the processor. So memory falls under storage. Okay. Next is output devices. These are examples of output devices. You have speakers here. You have monitors. Can you think of any other output devices? Which ones do you have at home, or which ones do you use in school? And these are the examples that we have. And what data comes out? Of course, it's going to be text. It's what we see on our screen. Sound, that's what we hear on our speakers. Beeps, yes, speakers, images, screens, monitors, and light. These are examples of output devices used to output device. These are monitors eh, for text, images, animations, and films. And speakers converts electrical signals into sound. Some computers have sound cards to improve quality of the sound. And if you're familiar with those high-end sounds like Dolby Atmos, okay, printers. There are different types of printers. You have the inkjet printer, you have the laser printer, and also the 3D printer. Do you know the difference between them? The material that they use to print on and the machine itself, the printer itself. The inkjet printer uses ink to blast or spray into bond papers or papers. Laser printer uses a powdery substance and uses a laser to blast the powdery substance which is accurately printed onto the paper material. Okay. And then the 3D printer is a more advanced printer which prints out lifelike size um, materials. Like for example, you're going to print a jar on a 3D printer, so the output is actually um, like a lifelike jar. Okay, that's why it's called a 3D printer. Okay, next, as I mentioned earlier, is the storage. And here comes the storage. These are devices that store your data, including files like documents, digital photos, music, graphics, and films. Examples of storage: any device that enables you to store data on it is a storage device like flash drives, hard disk drives, external hard drives, memory cards, DVD-ROM, okay, so floppy disks. So those are example of storage devices. Now, there on when it comes to storage devices, Okay, when it comes to storage devices, there are actually two types of storage devices, and that is primary storage and secondary storage devices. These devices that I have just mentioned, these ones, are what you call as secondary storage devices. Why? Because these are the devices that when you store data, even if you turn off the computer, the data is still there. Okay, and these are secondary storage devices because they don't communicate with the processor directly. Okay, while the primary storage device, and that is the primary storage device, and that is the memory or the RAM, because the CPU needs to store data whilst it is carrying out the processing required. The hardware that carries out this task is called the memory, and there are two types of memory: read-only memory and the random access memory. These are the primary storage devices. Okay, so anything, especially the RAM, anything that you need, say for example, the data is from your hard disk or from your flash drives, it won't be accessed by the processor directly, but it has to be loaded first into this memory stick, okay, into this RAM before it can be processed by the processor. That is why this is the primary storage device, and that is the RAM. Now the ROM is an example. For ROM is the basic input-output system of your computer, and that is when you turn on the computer, that is responsible for checking the essential parts of your computer for it to boot up or to turn on. It checks if the memory is there, the RAM is there, if the video card, if the processor is okay, and everything else that's essential for turning on, and then it boots up. Okay, even the secondary storage devices like the hard disk are not checked anymore for this. When it finds out that the hard disk is not present, it will just prompt that there is no operating system, but basically your computer is turning on. It boots up and then you see something on the screen. So that's the an example of a ROM, okay? The basic input output system of your computer, or the BIOS. Okay, so going back, so again, there are two types of memory, and that is the main memory and the secondary memory. This is the main mem the I'm sorry, the primary memory. Okay, this is the primary memory, the RAM together with the ROM. The secondary memory are the these devices. Okay, so these are the secondary memory. I'm sorry, secondary storage devices. Okay, the flash drives, hard drives. Okay, so as a review to the components, okay, there are four different hardware categories. You have input, process, output, and storage. Okay, so to zoom in, okay, these are examples of input devices. Okay, data goes into the system for processing. Something happens to the inputs, it's manipulated, and calculations and formatting and searches are being done, and then comes out of the system. So you have the monitor, the printer, headphones, projectors, etc. Are there any other input devices you can think of? Of course, like for example, speakers, okay, and the like. And of course, that's remember, data is saved to a storage device. Data can also be fetched from the storage device. So what is the role of the storage device? Can you name three different types of storage devices? Okay, you can name it. I hope you can still remember. Okay, we just discussed about it. And that's it. So thank you for joining me in this session. We will continue with the next one. Thanks for joining. Have a nice day. Bye.